My God. Hi everyone. As some of you know, I've been a bit unwell recently and I'm not up to making one of my usual videos, but this video is not one I expect my subscribers, currently numbering over 11,000 and rising, to be interested in anyway, because it's on a completely different topic. So I'm putting this video on my real name channel instead of my main YouTube channel, and I'm thinking that it will just be family members who might like to watch it, but if anyone else comes across it, it will probably be the only video I ever upload to this channel, so please don't bother subscribing. Having idly watched quite a few of those YouTube videos of strangers opening their DNA results, I fancied doing one of those tests myself, even though I'm not remotely interested in genealogy. My dad was. Somewhere in this crowded attic cum storage room I'm sitting in is a box full of birth certificates and other information about ancestors who I couldn't care less about. The only thing I've found in there of interest so far is this photo of, I believe, my paternal great-grandfather. Being able to put a face to a name makes all the difference to me, and this is George Reed, born in Edinburgh in 1842. I remember his daughter, who was my grandmother and who died when I was 10. And just for some balance, here is my maternal grandmother, Maria, and there is my mother as a baby sitting on her lap, and my Aunt Nitsa is the toddler. That would have been taken in Smyrna probably in 1921 or 22. This grandmother died when I was 18. Now, what I've been struck by in watching other people's videos is that a lot of them don't really understand how these things work and how they really can't be relied on in terms of discovering one's ethnicity, and how the different percentages of where you're supposed to come from don't necessarily mean what people think they mean. The testing companies have databases of DNA samples collected from reference populations living in different parts of the world today. They don't have access to the genomes of people of previous generations. I understand that they prefer to sample from rural populations on the assumption that less recent migration has occurred in those areas, and that they will only take samples from people whose all four grandparents were born in the same region. And what they do is analyse these samples taken from given populations, and they pinpoint common mutations. Most people who've had their genomes sequenced are of European descent. There will be peoples around the world who are barely represented, if at all. When you submit your sample DNA, the companies will compare it to samples on their databases, and they will be able to tell you roughly where your genetic information comes from. They can say with certainty that you share a common genetic marker with people living in those places today, though of course that doesn't mean all their ancestors going back many generations have also lived there. If I show a percentage of Egyptian, say, doesn't mean I'm ethnically Egyptian or Arab. It could be a result of the fact that there have been Greeks living in Egypt since forever, and that's where the mutation comes from. And when they get down to percentages, these need to be taken with a large pinch of salt. The very tiny percentages could easily be just statistical noise. I did read somewhere that we can have some confidence at a continental level, but when they start drilling down to individual countries or even parts of countries, we need to view those results with extreme caution. If I were to take further tests years down the line, say if I were to live that long, the results are likely to change quite a bit due to more people getting sequenced and the databases growing and having many more samples to compare to. Then again, if I used a different company now, the results could be very different. Quite a few people have tested with several companies at the same time, especially journalists doing pieces for magazines and TV. And we see things like, oh, this company said I'm 10% Scandinavian, and this other company says I'm not Scandinavian at all. The company I used was MyHeritage, and the main reason I used it is because it was the cheapest by far at the time. And the second reason was that I found websites that ranked it very highly for 2024, though you'll find people saying good things and bad things about all the companies. But it's worth keeping an eye on price, because it seems that all the main companies have sales and special offers from time to time. I paid £35 for the kit, and I paid for shipping on top of that to receive it from the United States and to send my sample back. That cost about another £9 in total. The samples were cheek swabs, which are nice and easy to do, and the time from purchasing the kit to getting the result was just under 5 weeks, which surprised me, because when I got notification that they had received my sample in, I think it was Texas, and they would now start processing it, they said I could expect the result in 3 to 4 weeks' time. In fact, it came in just 11 days. And this is their list of genetic groupings. They've got Irish, Scottish and Welsh in a separate group from English. Strange. The only other thing I want to say in advance is how appalled I am watching some other people's videos at their ignorance and their prejudices, saying things like, oh God, I hope I don't have any trace of X country or race in me. Human beings share 99.9% of their genetics with each other, and there are no genetically different races. Race is a social construct based on people's adaptive traits. Of that tiny 0.1% of difference between us, only about 10% of that is variance between populations. That's how similar we all are. More variance occurs within populations than between them. Right, it seems to be customary with these videos to make a prediction or say what I hope and expect these results to say. I don't have any hopes. I'll accept whatever the results are with grace and dignity and a commensurate dose of scepticism. I won't be at all surprised if my results suggest I'm not 100% European, but to my knowledge I am 50% British Isles and 50% Greek. Therefore, because of migration, it's quite likely to show percentages from other countries in Western Europe, particularly Northwest Europe on my dad's side, and thanks to the Ottoman Empire we could be looking at many countries around Greece on my mum's side. By the way, when it comes to assumptions made about where I come from based on what I look like or how I looked when I was young, I had plenty of people assume I'm Irish, which slightly surprised me. I do think there are people who look very Irish and they don't look anything like me. Quite a few people have asked me if I'm Italian, and that includes Italian people themselves. Spanish, I've had a few times. In the 1970s, I worked for a while as a waitress in an Iranian-owned restaurant in Kensington High Street, which was full of Iranians at that time, just before the revolution. That place employed a mixture of Iranian and staff from many other countries. Iranian customers would come in and just assume I was Iranian. They'd even start speaking to me in Farsi. But the one I found most interesting possibly was back in 1980, and I visited what was then Soviet Georgia, and a Georgian in-tourist guide told me I look really Georgian. When I looked around and saw all these fair-skinned people with very dark hair and eyes, it kind of resonated. If there's one thing people never think I am, it's Greek. But I am. 50%. Let's get to it. Just open up the email. Oh my God. The results are pretty much what I thought they'd be. I'm disappointed because I was hoping to discover my Polynesian great-great-great-great-grandmother in there somewhere. Nah, I'm only kidding. I haven't even opened it yet. Let's do it. Maria, ready to explore your ethnicity? Let's go. Maria, you are 43.7% North and West European, 26.9% Greek and South Italian, 17.7% Irish, Scottish and Welsh. Where's English? 3.8% Balkan, 7.9% three more ethnicities. Okay. Looking at England, and seems like I've got no English in me at all. Probably that means my Scottish husband has more English in him than I do. Nothing from Scandinavia. I find that a little bit surprising, though not as surprising as no English. And what are these other ethnicities? Covering large part of the Arabian Peninsula and Egypt, and Turkey, of course, is no surprise. Georgia, oh, I love it. Yes, maybe I'm related to Joseph Stalin. How lovely. Let's have a look at the view full ethnicity estimate. Actually, hold on, let's look at these percentages again and add them up. That's like 44 plus 18 is 62% North and Western European, Irish, Scottish and Welsh. I don't think that's quite right. And the rest, yeah, the rest look like they add up to roughly 38%. Now, my mother was born somewhere there, around there, in what is now Izmir in Turkey, of two Greek parents. I think the chances of her having any Irish or Scottish or whatever in her was pretty low. Possibly some French blood, but I think that's just probably like they've got it wrong. 2.6% Ashkenazi Jewish. It's amazing how many people supposedly have Ashkenazi Jewish in them, but I think all this means is that a tiny bit of my DNA might come from a group that the MyHeritage Reference Library have decided to label Ashkenazi Jewish. They can pass it from any of those countries. And West Asian, yeah, no surprise at all there. That covers the whole of Turkey, Ottoman Empire. Middle Eastern, it wouldn't have been surprised if it was higher than 1.5%, but that is really too low to be considered. Just knock the camera. That's too low to be considered significant. That is what I would guess is statistical noise. So what else have we got here? DNA. Oh, DNA matches. Oh, I'd forgotten about this, but when I did the test, there was an option to tick on whether I wanted to know if they had people I might be related to on their database, and I don't know why I said yes, really, except that it seems churlish to refuse information that's included in the price, even if I'm not very interested in it. So let's have a look. And there's a couple of people who are likely to be first cousins once removed through second cousins once removed. Whatever the hell that means. And oh my God, there are 8,910 possible distant relatives. Well, no offence but God only knows I have enough relatives already. I don't need any more. Thanks. So that's it. All in all, it was a fun thing to do. The best part of it was that it inspired me to learn a lot more about DNA and about how these tests are done, and that was fascinating. And my results, apart from, what was it, about 12% from the wrong side of Europe and no English being mentioned at all. Apart from that, they were pretty much what I expected based on what I already knew about my family, and it all pretty much fits in with what I'd learnt about these tests and how they shouldn't be taken too literally. Large pinch of salt. That's all.